for our mid-morning edition of Arirang News. I'm Mark Broom. Let's kick things off with a look at the day's headlines. The sweet sound of music. A North Korean orchestra will be coming to the south for next month's Winter Olympics. With a series of high-level talks taking place, will the two Koreas march behind the unification flag and possibly participate at the Olympics as a single team? The foreign ministers of 16 countries, including South Korea, the US and Japan, are meeting in Canada to thrash out a long-term solution to the North Korean issue. But with Russia, China and North Korea not invited, can any meaningful progress be made? Plus, the European Union is expected to remove South Korea from its tax haven blacklist. Officials in Brussels have reportedly recommended that 8 jurisdictions, including South Korea, be delisted after they offered to change their tax rules. So it's official, a renowned North Korean orchestra will be performing both in Seoul and Gangneung near the main site for next month's PyeongChang Winter Olympics. The decision was sealed after a second meeting between the two Koreas on Monday, but it's not yet clear whether Kim Jong-un's favourite all-girl group will also make the trip south. Our Ji Myung-gil starts us off.
North Korea said on Monday it will send 140 members of its Samjiyon Orchestra to South Korea during the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics. The troupe will perform in the South Korean capital of Seoul and the city of Gangneung in Gangwon-do province. Gangneung is one of the Olympic host cities where the ice events of the Games will take place.
Seoul and Pyongyang have agreed to continue their talks to decide on the exact venue for the performance, stage settings and technical aspects such as the show.
The North said it will send an on-site inspection team to check out the venues and to discuss practical matters along with South Korean officials. In response, South Korea promised to provide the North Korean performers with all the necessary support to ensure their comfort and safety. The 140 members from the orchestra will be coming to South Korea by land. They will cross the truce village of Panmunjom on the inter-Korean border. The two sides have agreed to continue consultations via the reopened communication hotline also located in Panmunjom. North Korea observers say Pyongyang could use such art and music performances to convey a softer image amid tightened international sanctions against the regime's nuclear and missile provocations. Following Monday's talks, the two Koreas also agreed to hold further talks on Wednesday, this time on the vice-ministerial level in regards to the participation of North Korean athletes in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics.
The South Korean government hopes that the North art performance during the PyeongChang Winter Olympics will help improve bilateral relations and foster cultural unity between the South and North. Ji Myung-gil, Arirang News.
We've now had 2 rounds of inter-Korean talks in the space of a week after 2 years of little to no communication, and we don't have to wait that long for a third round. The two Koreas have set this Wednesday for more high-level dialogue where they are likely to decide on the size of the visiting North Korean delegation, who is footing the bill, and whether the two sides will participate as a single team at the Olympics. Kim Mo-gyun with the details.
The two Koreas have agreed to hold another round of talks about the North's participation in the PyeongChang Winter Olympics, this time at the vice-ministerial level. South Korea's unification ministry said South Korea accepted North Korea's counter-proposal to hold talks early on Wednesday on the southern side of the truce village of Panmunjom. The North's suggestion of a time and place came Monday in response to an offer last week by South Korea for higher-level talks. In that initial offer, Seoul said that it would send its Vice Minister for Unification Chun Hae-sung with 2 other delegates. North Korea responded that it will send a 3-member delegation led by Chun Jong-soo, who is Vice Chairman of the Committee for Peaceful Reunification of Korea, Korea's state agency in charge of inter-Korean affairs. Observers say this could mean North Korea considers its committee the equivalent of South Korea's unification ministry. One expert says the North's latest proposal has 2 purposes. The first is for Pyongyang to arrange the terms of its participation in the Olympics, and second is a rather more strategic goal.
The reason is because North Korea wants to start a propaganda campaign to send a message to the wider world that North Korea would like to see peace in this region, as well as make sure that the relationship between two Koreas should be exclusive to the two Koreas and exclude the United States from the issue.
The agenda of the talks would likely focus on the Olympics itself rather than politics. Things like the athletes' travel route, accommodations, and other logistics.
The North's nuclear development will definitely be a non-issue. Since the North's decision to participate just comes in less than a month, they will focus on more practical details, such as forming a unified Korean team.
Kim Mo-gyan, Arirang News.
Now, South Korea's sports and culture minister is hopeful that athletes from the two Koreas will march together under a Korean unification flag at the opening and closing ceremonies of the 2018 PyeongChang Winter Olympics if the two sides agree on a joint entrance. Speaking to lawmakers at the National Assembly on Monday, Minister Do Jong-hwan said the two Koreas have made 9 joint entrances behind the unification flag in the past. The minister said the unification flag could be used during the opening and closing ceremonies and the South Korean national flag used during the actual sporting competitions. On Seoul's proposal of assembling a joint women's ice hockey team with North Korea, the minister said no South Korean players will be excluded if the plan gets the green light. Seoul's top diplomat is en route to Vancouver for high-level international discussions on the situation with North Korea. But with China and Russia not invited to the talks, questions over the meeting's credibility have already been raised. Kwon Jang-oh with the details.
The inaugural Vancouver Foreign Ministers meeting on security and stability on the Korean Peninsula will open on Tuesday. Co-hosted by the US and Canada, the meeting aims to boost the global effort to find a peaceful resolution to the North Korea nuclear situation. Those invited are being called the Vancouver Group and will include most countries that fought in the Korean War under the UN flag, such as the UK, France and Turkey, as well as South Korea, and other interested parties like India, Japan and Sweden. However, notable absentees include China, Russia and North Korea. It's unclear whether they were formally invited or not, but their absence has caused some to question the effectiveness and purpose of the meeting. Beijing has criticized it, saying that without all the major relevant parties involved, the meeting won't help the situation on the Korean Peninsula and only divide the international community even further. Despite an easing of tensions, with the two Koreas now talking again, the main outcome of the summit is expected to be an agreement to keep the pressure on Pyongyang, with the next step being a focus on trying to stop ships carrying out illicit trade with the regime at sea.
The main point of this Vancouver meeting is to confirm the solidarity among these countries that the maximum pressure on North Korea in the form of the unilateral and the multilateral economic sanctions must remain as a top priority. China and Russia may jump on the ship if they find that international solidarity is the inevitable trend, and it serves as strategic interest to be on board.
A trilateral meeting on the sidelines with South Korea, the US and Japan has been talked about, as has a separate South Korea-US meeting where the ongoing inter-Korean talks would likely be the main point of discussion. Then there's a potentially frosty meeting between the foreign ministers of Seoul and Tokyo on the table as well. South Korea and Japan relations have soured again in recent weeks after the Moon administration condemned the controversial 2015 Seoul-Tokyo agreement on the issue of Japan's wartime sexual enslavement of Korean women. It's not clear what progress could be made from this meeting, but it promises to be a highly charged affair. Kwon Jang-oh, Arirang News.
Russia's foreign minister says Moscow is ready to support direct talks with North Korea. Speaking at a press conference on Monday, Sergei Lavrov said the most important thing was for all parties to ease tensions by freezing both North Korean missile tests and the South Korea-US military drills, and then Russia would support US-led North Korea talks within the six-party framework. However, Lavrov also criticized the US for its belligerent attitude towards North Korea, saying it has destabilized the world, and added that any changes to the Iran nuclear deal would send the wrong message to Pyongyang. He also took aim at the US and Canada-led Foreign Ministers Summit on North Korea that is set to kick off in Vancouver on Tuesday. Representatives from 20 countries will be attending, but not Russia or China, and Lavrov says he does not expect anything to come from the meeting. Senior diplomats and defense officials of South Korea and the US will get together this week in Washington to discuss joint deterrence measures against North Korea. It's a meeting of the Extended Deterrence Strategy and Consultation Group, also known as the 2+2 meeting. And it involves Seoul's Vice Foreign Minister Im Sung-nam, as well as some American officials as well. The discussions will be in support of the ongoing efforts to resolve the North Korea nuclear issue peacefully. Now, Im is scheduled to meet with other White House officials as well during his 5-day trip. He'll also visit New York to meet with the UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres. The European Union is reportedly planning to remove South Korea and 7 other jurisdictions from its blacklist of tax havens. Reports say the jurisdictions were taken off the list after they committed to change their tax rules. Park So-yeon reports.
The European Union is expected to remove South Korea from its blacklist of tax havens this month, lifting the threat of reputational damage and disciplinary economic measures. The EU's Code of Conduct Working Group on Business Taxation has reportedly recommended to take 8 jurisdictions off its previous list of 17 that was released last month. At the time, the EU said it was a move to deter worldwide tax avoidance. The countries to be removed include South Korea, the United Arab Emirates, Panama, and Barbados. Reports say the recommendation for delisting the jurisdictions will be discussed at a meeting of EU finance ministers in Brussels on January 23rd. If the proposal is adopted, 8 countries will be changed from non-cooperative tax jurisdictions to a grey list of countries that will be monitored for compliance following new commitment letters signed at a high political level. And that will leave places like Guam, Bahrain, American Samoa, the Marshall Islands, and others on the blacklist, facing the possibility of sanctions for their failure to comply with EU standards. As South Korea is expected to be removed from the list, it hopes to regain its trustworthy reputation as a responsible member of the OECD. Park So-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, the recent response by the South Korean government to the country's cryptocurrency craze came as a bit of a shock and greatly angered many investors here. We finally had confirmation on Monday that any drastic move like banning exchanges will only be decided after deep discussions on the matter, as the technology could be a driver of economic growth in the future. Lee Ji-won reports.
The Korean government's announcement Monday wasn't the blow many crypto traders had feared, a ban on virtual currency exchanges. Rather, officials said there hasn't been a decision yet.
Any plan to shut down the exchanges, which is one possible way to curb speculation, as suggested by the Justice Minister last month, will be decided after thorough discussions and coordination in the government.
The government also said that it'll continue to push forward with a plan to require investors' real names in cryptocurrency trading, and that price manipulation and other crimes will be punished severely. But the government also showed a change in tone, saying it'll invest in research and development of blockchain technology, the computer code that makes cryptocurrency unique. This follows a number of announcements by the government in the past month amid cryptocurrency's exponential rise. Korea is now the 3rd largest Bitcoin trading market in the world after Japan and the US. And experts say there are reasons for the government's concerns.
Koreans are investing in the virtual currency for the wrong reasons. They don't see it as a new form of currency that could make up for the shortcomings of the ones we have now, but as a way to earn huge sums of money in a short amount of time. And with the current security level of the exchanges and the development of blockchain system, it's a very risky investment to make.
Despite the huge potential blockchain technology could have in the future, the experts said it's still in the development stages, and that the relatively weak security of the crypto exchanges compared to banks make them more prone to cyber attacks.
The government is doing a good job in warning the public of a possible fall in the market. And having seen a lot of potential in the technology, the government should step up investments in blockchain technology and nurture companies to overcome the current shortcomings.
The expert added it's also vital for the public to see virtual currency not as a speculative tool, but as a potential currency for the future. Lee Ji-won, Arirang News.
A number of government ministries have laid out their plans to allocate this year's budget to provide greater support to small and mid-sized enterprises. It's designed to help them turn their ideas into business models, as well as fostering innovative industries and creating new jobs. Kim Ji-yeon reports.
The Ministry of SMEs and Startups said Monday that it'll inject more than $13 million throughout this year to boost research and development by small and medium-sized companies, particularly those engaged in sectors that are crucial to the so-called Fourth Industrial Revolution.
The amount to aid SMEs do business overseas is about 4% less compared to last year's, which was slightly higher due to the execution of the government's supplementary budget bill for job creation.
The Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy also plans to pour in more than $18.8 million for the next 5 years on entities engaged in its 5 major new innovative industries, such as electric and autonomous vehicles, Internet of Things, energy, biohealth, and semiconductors and displays. Companies selected will be provided with quality consultative services by the state-run Korea Intellectual Property Service Center involving patents, marketing of products, and services overseas. Also, the Korean Intellectual Property Office says it will dedicate this year's budget of nearly $18.6 million, which is up by more than 11% from last year's, to SMEs that are considered crucial to creating new tech or innovative ICT services. The IP office says during the 5 years it has supported SMEs until 2017, it was able to help Korea reap economic benefits 6 times the amount the country had originally invested on helping SMEs. Business entities that are interested can visit each of the ministry's websites this month to apply. Kim Ji-yeon, Arirang News.
Now, for a look at stories making headlines around the world, and we start with twin bombings in Iraq. 2 suicide bombers killed at least 38 people in a busy street market in Baghdad on Monday. For more on this and other news from around the world, let's turn to our Noah Aram. So, Aram, Iraqi officials are calling the bombings terror attacks. Just walk us through what happened.
Well, Mark, officials say the back-to-back explosions occurred at Tahran Square in central Baghdad. 2 men set off suicide bomb belts, the first one detonating his device at around 7 a.m. local time, and the second coming shortly after. Tahran Square is a bustling commercial centre and a place where day labourers gather in the early morning waiting for jobs. Scores of those labourers were among the dead, and more than 100 people are also said to have been injured. Videos circulating online showed vendors and locals fleeing the scene in panic with slippers scattered across the ground as they ran. No group has so far claimed responsibility for either attack, but they bore all the hallmarks of the Islamic State group. Monday's suspected terror attacks came just 2 days after a suicide bomber struck a police checkpoint in northern Baghdad, killing 8 people there. Attacks in the city did seem to die down since IS lost its Iraqi strongholds last year, but extremist sleeper cells still appear to be active. Analysts have warned that IS would increasingly turn to such guerrilla tactics as it was pushed underground. Following the twin bombings, Iraqi Prime Minister Haider al-Abadi called for these sleeper cells to be eliminated. In other news, Airbus says it would have no choice but to stop producing its A380 super jumbo jets if it does not work out a deal with its main customer airline Emirates. The French company said Monday it's still in talks with the Middle Eastern carrier for a possible order, adding it is hopeful a deal will be finalised. However, if no deal is reached, the firm admitted that its flagship aircraft program would have to shut down unless it can find more buyers. Airbus said Emirates was the only carrier which has the ability to commit to a minimum of 6 planes a year for a minimum of 8 to 10 years, which Airbus needs to make the program viable. Despite the concerns over the A380s, Airbus said it had received more orders for other planes than its US rival Boeing last year. Dolores O'Riordan, lead singer of Irish band the Cranberries, has died at the age of 46. In a statement, her publicist said she suddenly died on Monday in London, where she was recording, but didn't provide further details, including the cause of her death. The The Cranberries rose to global fame in the early 1990s with a string of hits including Linger and Zombie, and went on to sell over 40 million records worldwide. Personal dedications to the late singer have flooded social media, with fans and fellow musicians paying tribute.
Good morning. You'll need an umbrella today depending on where you are. We'll see snow or rain. Now, regions in the east could see dry weather alerts lifted, while the central region, including Seoul, won't see much precipitation today. But it would be really nice to see more rain that could wash away all the dust in the air. But the central region will continue to have high levels of fine dust today, while southern regions can look forward to much cleaner air thanks to the wet weather. Also, today's precipitation will not bring down the temperatures much, and Seoul will get up to 4 degrees Celsius, while Jeju Island will top out at 17 degrees this afternoon. Now, that's the temperature we would normally see in mid-April. Now, Seoul could see some mild readings tomorrow as well, but starting Friday, lows will go down to what we would normally see around this time, but highs will remain above the seasonal average. With that, let's take a look at the international weather for viewers around the world. Well, most regions in South Korea will be dealing with snow or rain along with relatively mild temperatures. Most cities in North Korea will also see a mix of rain and snow along with colder temperatures. And as for the rest of Asia, Beijing's toxic conditions are not getting any better, with northern China covered in a thick blanket of smog. Meanwhile, enjoy the cooler temperatures while you can, because Australia's major cities are once again to hit scorching high of 40 degrees mark later in the week. Heading to North America, New York City's Tuesday will be mainly cloudy with some snow likely during the afternoon. And as for South America, Sao Paulo and Rio de Janeiro will have some scattered thunderstorms during the day. Taking you to Europe, major cities on the map will have either rain or sunshine on a Tuesday. Lastly, to Africa, Dakar and Cape Town will have a cloudy and windy Tuesday. That's all the weather update for now.
Thank you as always to our Jihyun for the weather update, and that's where we're going to leave the news for now on this Tuesday morning here in Seoul. Our next bulletin is coming up at noon Korea time in around 90 minutes from now, so until then, goodbye.